Whenever you're doing research or looking at literature to develop a literature review for the sole intent of supporting an idea, which is what you're doing in this research literature review assignment, you're looking to support your ideas. That's the goal here. It isn't just to develop a literature review. The goal is to find ideas, find information, find evidence to support what it is you're doing. But whenever you go down this path, if you're not careful, you can get caught up in the rabbit trail. You can get caught up in the time suck, this vortex that just seems to suck you in, and you keep on looking for things, and the more you look, the more frustrating it can become, the more things you find. And what I want to do is I want to give you a perspective that will perhaps give you a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, because there are effective ways to actually take a look at doing research, which will help you find the evidence you need to support what it is that you're doing. So I'm going to use an example of blended learning and lifeguarding and a variety of other things. There's the flipped classroom. There's a variety of other things that you can look at in terms of what you're searching for. And the reason I am is that I want people to understand that when you are searching for terms, the more specific you are, the more difficult it's going to be to find certain things. So if I were to type in blended learning and lifeguarding, you'll see that it doesn't really bring that much. Oh, you got e-learning and learning less swimming, lifeguards, lifeguard dogs. There's no blended learning and lifeguarding. So that should tell you right away that you might have to actually look at blended learning and look at lifeguarding, or e-learning and lifeguarding, or this might be something. So again, you might want to take a look at this particular article and take a look at the references and see what they're talking about. So you will have to very quickly shift from a very, very narrow focus in your search to maybe looking at something a little bit broader and looking at two different terms or looking at a variety of different terms. The key thing that I want you to understand here is that when you're searching for key ideas, you might have to be a little bit flexible and adaptable and use some of the findings that you're getting to help direct where you're going. Okay, that's going to be really important. Also, you'll notice that some of these results are older, 2012, 2011, 2015. Some are more contemporary, some are newer, and that's fine. This is going to lead to another issue that has come up in some of the questions and some concerns. Here we've got an article back from 1999. The reality is that we've been using technology to enhance learning for decades, a long time. This goes back, well, guess what? Technology is a chalkboard. Technology is a film strip. Technology is audio. Technology is TV. We've been using technology to enhance learning for decades, for a long, long time. And so a lot of these ideas of using technology to enhance learning and in the current form, blended learning, while they may seem to be new to some people, blended learning has really been around for almost 30 or 40 years. And if you actually do a search just on blended learning, you'll find that the research literature will go back to the 90s, the mid-90s, and when we started using that term. The flipped classroom terminology would be a little bit more contemporary, probably since about 2012, 2014-ish, that type of idea. So again, don't get caught up in thinking that I can only look for contemporary research. And if it's contemporary research you're looking for, the problem is, well, there's no primary sources in it. Well, guess what? You got to find a balance. Contemporary research, something newer in the last 5, 10, 15 years, will be a synthesis. That's okay. But actually, as you look at that synthesis, you might then need to actually go back a little bit and take a look at some of the primary sources that synthesis was based on. Right? You've got to find a balance between some of the older primary sources and some of the new contemporary sources. It's really about finding a balance, identifying the key terms, identifying the key ideas. Because remember, you're not just doing this for the sake of doing a literature review. You're finding evidence to support your ideas. And sometimes you're going to have to learn about the contemporary terminology and some of the older terminology. Right, and find that balance. So you want to find a balance of older literature, some of the primary sources that are going to support the contemporary resources that you want. Now, don't limit yourself to the last 5 years or the last 10 years. In all honesty, you can go back in the last 20 years and be relatively safe. Yes, you do want to have some resources that are relatively new the last 5 years. Sure, that's wonderful. Look for contemporary ideas, but find that balance. Don't get caught up in the dating too much, but don't get caught up in the old literature, because what we were doing in the 90s in terms of broadband and near ubiquitous access was very, very different than what we have today. In the 90s, there was a concern of the last mile, and we didn't have high-speed internet everywhere like we do today. But today, we still have the issue of not everybody having high-speed internet. So there are subtle changes that happen as we get closer to the modern day, to the present time, in terms of what the research has to say. You're going to have to do a bit of due diligence, explore, find ideas that are going to support what you're doing, and at the same time, you're going to have to learn the terminology. Find the contemporary sources, find the older sources, find the synthesis, use the primary sources, find a balance. The key with the literature review is to find a balanced amount of evidence that will support and augment what it is that you're planning to do, and to support the arguments when you inevitably receive pushback on your ideas.